Kia ora, kia orana. What does it mean to be able to see the light in the dark? I'm going to share a story of my experience about how I learnt to see the light in the dark, and through this story, to give you a deeper understanding of what I mean by that. This is one of the pillars, one of the promises of the Remix program, for people that come through this space to be able to see the light in the dark. So I used to feel swallowed up, weighed down by relationship challenges. And I'm talking when I'd be going through something, like I could have been like all energetic, all bubbly, everything, and then when this situation would occur, boof, it'd be like there was a huge boulder on my chest. And things that I was going to do, I could no longer do because I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the motivation, the stamina, the nothing. So it consumed when I would get into situations and relationships, or when, yeah, they would get heavy, and take everything out of me. And so this one story I'm going to share came to mind when I was thinking about this pillar. And it was way back in 2015 or somewhere around there. I was working with a mentor, a coach. I had just began my journey, training as a human behavior coach, and I had a mentor. And this mentor was holding a workshop in the city, and I was all planned to go. Now, the day beforehand, something had happened in my relationship, and I just remember it taking it all out of me, as I described before. So I wasn't motivated to go to this space. I wasn't excited. I could barely get out of my head. And that boulder was right here on my chest. And yeah, I was pinned down, weighed down. And this is how I used to get. I used to get real pinned down. And so, anyways, the next day came around, and I was still in and out of whether or not I should go to this workshop. And anyway, I ended up, because I was, in this space of learning and development and training to, understand why we do what we do as a coach. I was learning all of this stuff. I was in this environment. I found the courage to get changed and go. So I made my way onto the train, or however I got in there at the time. And I remember rocking up, and I was late. I communicated I'd be late because, I was going through it, and last minute I got my stuff together and decided to go. So I got the courage to go in. I remember standing outside, feeling embarrassed, like smoking a cigarette, and I was just like, oh, I didn't want to walk into this room where potentially there's just going to be people who, were excited to be in that room, and actually I was just struggling to be out of my house. And so, anyway, I went inside, just sat down, got on with it. Again, I didn't have much energy, I didn't have much pizzazz. I was just getting by, right? And then the break came, and we were in the city, so everyone was able to go out, get something to eat, have a break. And I remember, like, I didn't even move out of the seat. I'd found comfort in that seat, and I was just kind of like writing, and, I was happy to stay there. Anyway, started chatting with my mentor, who was still kind of pottering around, and he asked me what's up. And I was just like, I didn't really get into it. But then I did. I found the courage to, share and be open. I don't want to get into it because, one, I didn't think it was the time and the place, and yeah, I didn't want anyone to see or know what was going on, and I was embarrassed. Yeah. So anyway, in that space, he was my mentor, so it was a safe space, and I started to just say that, I'm not doing my best, and gave him a little bit of context. Well, what happened next was how I learned to see light in the dark, one of the ways. He picked up his whiteboard marker, and he turned to the board, and he picks up this pen, and he starts writing on this board, starts mapping out this model, and he starts talking to me about it. And I'm watching, I'm following along, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like following along, and all of a sudden my my consumed thoughts on this situation that had happened in my relationship, all of my thoughts, all of my energy were going on to this situation, how I was going to figure it out, how we were going to do this, da da da, what if this, that, blah, 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 all this stuff. It was now on this whiteboard, and I was like following along and listening to him speaking. I won't go through the model that he taught me, but the point is that I was now focused. I was now watching this model, following along, and getting some understanding. Obviously, this model was to do with connection and relationships, and the why we experience what we experience. And so what that moment on the whiteboard did was it helped me to normalize my experience, because this is obviously a model that's been created around relationship dynamics. And it made me think, if this is a model that can apply to all people, I mustn't be the only one going through it. So it immediately pulled me out of this pit of I'm the only one that's going through this, my world is crashing. So it shifted that weight off, because I had options, I had perspective, I had choice in that moment. So yeah, with watching this model being mapped out, it normalized my experience. It gave me some options, it gave me some hope, perspective, all of that, right? I felt lighter. And then I thanked them for taking that time and that break. And then, we had a bit of lunch, and then got back into the day. What happened from there is that, my that weight, or that feeling swallowed up and consumed by relationship issues, didn't just go away like that, right? But what did start to happen was, when things would happen, I would be able to remember these models and, be in the pit for less amount of time. And because I was training to be a human behavior coach, I obviously dove into these models and learnt more of these for myself, and I started sharing them with other people naturally. And just the time that I would spend down in the pits, right, with this weight, became less and less. And I started sharing more and more, and I started, having clients, having people come to me with these similar situations, and I was able to share these models, and have that lived experience of like knowing that weight, knowing these struggles that we can go through. So how this relates to being able to see light in the dark is that when we feel weighted down, when we are going through it, when we're in the pits of the dark, right? These tools, these models that can help to normalize our experience and pull us out of the, I'm the only one going through it, that heaviness, these are like our flashlight, okay? And this is why I share models. This is one of the main reasons I do, I find myself doing the same when someone has a situation. I'll float a model or a map past them, right? So this 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 is one of the ways to be able to see light in the dark, because when we're in the dark, it's like the unknown. It's the we feel unsafe because we don't know what's going to happen. We've got this heaviness going on, and so it's all just really dense and dark. And so we've got to find ways to be able to see in the dark, right? And knowing these tools and these maps and things are one way to do that. There are other ways which I'll speak about later. But yeah, this is one. Another one, just off the bat, story. When we hear another person's story, it normalizes our experience, and it helps us to shift that weight of we're the only one going through it. So, and hence another reason why I'm big on, sharing story. I have a podcast, Native Navigation, which is all dedicated to sharing story, so that it helps normalize other people's experiences. So all of these things contribute to us being able to move keep moving and keep that momentum as we're going through situations that are unknown, situations that are uncomfortable, that are painful, which, is like not being able to see in the dark. So, yeah, filling that toolkit with ways that we can light up our situation. And then ultimately, what happens? Like, I went from being in the trenches to learning to sharing to, I do this for, a living. This is what I do, is to share these things and educate and teach. But now, looking back, it's like, once we move through these really dark and dense situations that can weigh us down, right? We get to a place where we can stand on our story and make light of what was once really heavy, okay? And we can tell stories from a light place. We can joke around. We can bring light to our situation, and that's bringing light, bringing laughter, bringing humor, bringing a lightness to a situation that we once were really weighed down by. That is like ultimate healing, right? Because I know for a fact back in 2015, I wasn't laughing. Like, I was not laughing, okay? There was no way. But now, how I'm able to manage in my connections and my relationships. There's still moments where I'm not laughing, but it's just that I don't get down in the pits and get weighed down and consumed and all of that, right? So, point of this is gathering ways that we can learn to see in the dark. And I guess just tying this back into the remix, this is one of the promises. This, what I'm teaching in here is these maps, these tools that you can put into your basket to be able to navigate your way through unknown, unfamiliar situations. So I'll leave it there. But yeah, I'll see you when I see you. Ka kite.